Why are you scared? That anything that stands on the way of the revolution, it must be eliminated in the best interest of the revolution, and we must never be scared to do that. The founding manifesto of the EFF says we'll take power by all means necessary. And therefore revolutionaries, when confronted by that situation, should never think twice. Cowards are not for the revolution. The EFF must be known that it is not a playground for racists. That any racist that plays next to the EFF and threatens and beat up the membership and the leadership of the EFF, that is an application to meet your maker with immediate effect. You were beaten by a racist and you never did anything. Let's hope this new leadership will make a follow-up on that racist, because there must be a follow-up on that racist. I'm not asking you to do what I've not done. When a racist confronted me at Winnie Mandela's funeral, I did what I was expected to do, because I was not scared of a white man. You get beaten by white people here and you call yourself an organization of Fanon. Racism is violence, and violence can only be ended by violence, not any other necessary means. It must be confronted by how it is.
Hello, good morning, shalom. When I say good morning from East Africa. Yeah, I'm just awake right now, and yeah. So I want us to talk about South Africa. You know, South Africa, they are going to hold their next election somewhere in May 2024. So as for now, the president has still not announced the date, but the month is 2024. According to the Constitution of South Africa, the president, who is now Cyril Ramaphosa, has to announce the date. And so one of the contesting parties, the second largest election party, if I'm right, is EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. And the first party is ANC. The ANC has been elected many times. It's the country which has had the most presidents in South Africa since Nelson Mandela. We had Nelson Mandela, we had Thabo Mbeki, we had Jacob Zuma, we have Cyril Ramaphosa, and now we are waiting for 2024, which is this year. Somewhere in May we'll be having the date. And so Malema, as the leader of EFF, was also, he was having kind of a debate which is also kind of a manifesto, and he said really important things that I can't wait to see if he will really achieve this. You know, African leaders, we have the tendency of promising our people something. We promise them this and we deliver that. So we hope that Malema, if he's chosen the president, he won't change. He will stick by his rules, but he won't bend his rules because of power.
This as the country prepares for the 2024 general elections. To speak to us more about the party's plans and where the country is at the moment.
You ought to come to me and say, these are the allegations that are being made against you. What do you have to say? What do? You conclude and say, this is what you must do. And what must I say? You have already taken a decision about me. You can as well decide what you want to do with me, but I'm not going to apologize in 10 days. I'm not going to do it. They would rather take us to court. We have no problem going to court, and they will argue our case in court. But that body must be ashamed of itself, because the most basic principle of equality before the law is such that you must hear both sides. That principle has been violated.
That body,
Yes.
Mr. Malema, is a Chapter 9 institution. And on the radio this morning, if I heard them correctly, they of the view that many of their recommendations, so they conduct investigations and their recommendations simply get ignored. Why am I saying this to you? You are a member of parliament. That makes you a lawmaker. Do you not run the risk of denigrating the stature of that body? Shouldn't you be leading by example and saying, okay, we'll comply because this is a constitutional body?
You're asking me to be violated because I'm a member of parliament. I make the law. I know the constitution. I'm not going to be violated because I'm a member of parliament. Nowhere in the constitution does it say members of parliament must be violated, even when it is openly clear. My brother, you ought to agree with me. I've got a right to be heard by the Human Rights Commission. It received complaints about me. It must give me an opportunity to make representations so that I justify the things I said. They make a conclusion without listening to me.
Yeah.
What type of democracy is that, where the other side is not being heard? Is it because I'm an African? Is it because I'm a child of a domestic worker that my view doesn't matter? That my side of the story doesn't matter? That the white man complained, and because the white man complained, his views are supreme than mine. I'm not going to allow that. Not from a Human Rights Commission, not from anyone, not even from the courts. The court hears hardened criminals. They hear their side of the story. I'm making a political articulation. And Human Rights Commission, all they can do, what do you mean by this? At least even if they've taken a decision, let them be seen to be, listening to the other side. That's all I'm saying.
As a black person, I hate racism.
Say you agree with me. You don't. There's nothing you disagree with them.
I hate it with my whole being.
There's nothing you disagree with them.
Is that the best way for the EFF to deal with violence and racist behavior?
But Fanon deals with that in the Ratchet of the Earth. If you intensify your reading of Fanon, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The only way to add violence is to deal with it in a violent way. And racism is violence. What do you do, Koli? Because they never hear anything. The only language they know is the language they speak. So they ought to be put at their right place. Are you saying I am a racist by saying no racist must play next to the EFF?
No.
Am I racist?
The issue here is incitement.
What am I inciting? That
when you say
no racist must play next to the EFF, is that an incitement?
No. When you say
if they dare do that, nip it on the bud, cut the throat of racism and white supremacy.
When you say to the members of the EFF in that PPA that you must follow up, I expect you to follow up on that racist.
Yes.
That's incitement.
How is follow up an incitement?
What must they follow up on?
They must follow up on what happened to the racist. And they must intervene decisively.
What does that
Since
mean?
when is a follow-up a problem? When I proposed a girl today, I follow up. It's an incitement when I follow up. The English of 405 has changed. That follow-up means violence. That's a distortion of the word. They must follow up on what happened to that racist who beat up not only black people, black women. The white man till to date, despite the fact that cases were opened, is still not arrested because it's a white man. Had it been a black guy who unleashed such unjustifiable violence against a white woman, what would have happened to that black person? We ought to confront racism everywhere else where it raises its ugly head. And if it has not been attended to, it must be followed up so that no one dares to repeat such a similar mistake.
In a country that is already battling with violence, I mean, I don't have to tell you the stories that we have been reporting on in the past week, particularly the violation of women at the hands of men. We are a country that is struggling with dealing with violence. Is that the best way that the EFF thinks it can resolve such matters?
What option are you giving me? Where are you when an African woman is beaten with a cricket bat? Where is the Human Rights Commission? The picture is there. If anything, you can't even play it here because it's not favoring your narrative. But the video is there of a white, well-built Afrikaner male beating up an African woman with a cricket bat. It's not an issue on the ENCA because the black lives, I mean, in the 4-5, the black life doesn't matter. I'm not going to buy into that narrative that black people must be beaten up and the next thing I must keep quiet. I'm not going to keep quiet. Do anything you want to do to me. I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm not going to allow the white Afrikaners in particular to perpetuate institutionalized racism in South Africa, and we keep quiet, and we are being silenced by institutions that must be coming into our defense. Where is the Human Rights Commission for that woman who was beaten there? Where are they? Do they think we're a soft target? Let them do what they want to do. We're not going to apologize for that.
And so final word is that there's not going to be any apology and all roads lead to Equality Court.
I'm not going to any Equality Court. They can go to Equality Court. What am I doing in Equality Court? You take me to Equality Court without listening to me first? What happened to those commissioners there who say they are standing for human rights? Why can't they stand for my rights? That an Indian legal head of legal in human rights commission decide on his own, because he thinks he's a deputy white, on his own, to find me guilty and tell me to apologize without listening to me. They've done it to Zuma, they can do it to me as well, I don't care. But I'm not going to be a puppet of people who are advancing white supremacy and want to legitimize their nonsense at the expense of my rights. The rights that so many people died for. I'm not going to compromise on that.
All right, let's move on from that and talk about these provincial assemblies, people's assemblies. You have crisscrossed the country, and one of the issues I'd like to pick up on is that you have berated the structures for not electing enough women into leadership structures. Why do you think that behavior persists?
Well, we come from a patriarchal society, and therefore the problems of our society will always show their ugly faces in our organizations because we're made of members of that society. But those who join the EFF should know that by joining the EFF, you admit that you are an advanced detachment of society. And therefore the illnesses of society should not characterize the outcome of a meeting of the EFF. So it is so unfortunate that you will have a province like Eastern Cape electing 5 males into the top 5. And by the way, it's the only province. All provinces of the EFF have elected women into structures of the EFF without any intervention. That is the only province I've had to speak out against, in line with the EFF principle of constructive self-criticism. So when I criticize them, I criticize myself. And as a result, the War Council met yesterday, received the report of the Eastern Cape, and a decisive intervention will be made in the best interest of making sure that nothing compromises the principal position of the EFF when it comes to gender equality. But otherwise, generally, all of them went so smooth. You have never seen such an organization in the past decade organizing such a smooth sailing, well-oiled machinery in the country. Highly organized, democratic, no intervention, no interference by the leadership.
For those provinces that still find it problematic or find it difficult to infuse women into leadership structures, do you think that legislating the gender parity rules, for example, will possibly fix the problem?
We are going to propose that in our next National People's Assembly, that the officials of the EFF, there should be a certain percentage, but with regard to the whole structure as a PCT or RCT or BCT or the Central Command Team, the composition of it all at the end must be 50%. So we now realize that they are now using the officials to exclude the women. So let's also take it there. It's a principle that we are prepared to force it through their throats. And if they don't like it, the door is open. We are not going to sit in an organization with people who still see women as not being equal to them. Because we come from a perspective that women are equal and they are capable to lead. And therefore, you can't have a conference constituted by 60% of women. Because that conference was constituted by 60% of women, and still doesn't come with at least one woman in the top 5. It was an embarrassment.
As you build these structures in provinces, and I like to use the word grassroots, because the EFF, I think for some time, has been wanting to build what is called organic structures in the various provinces. Does it give you a sense now that you stand a fair chance of taking over some of these provinces? And if so, which ones are easy pickings for the EFF?
Well, we struggled a lot in the coastal, and we're seeing a huge improvement in KZN, and some slight improvement in the Eastern Cape. But the elected leadership, in particular the chairperson of the Eastern Cape, inspires a lot of hope and confidence in us that we're going to turn things around in that province. He's got the necessary energy, he's got the necessary vision, and he's driven. And for some time we needed someone with that type of energy who is having a conviction of his own, and he's driven by that. We've got new leadership in the Western Cape. We hope to see some growth there, even with 1 million membership recruitment in the Western Cape. We're still not doing well with regard to that. We have had reflections yesterday. Some form of intervention is going to be made with the new leadership. We're confident enough that we'll turn things around. So these conferences, for me, have given some sense of hope, and they've revived something in me that it is not all lost. We are not stuck. We are going to make a huge progress, and Gauteng comes number 1 when it comes to one of those provinces that we are going to be targeting. Mboiseni is now finished in Limpopo, has done a great job in Limpopo. In 95% of the wards of Limpopo have existing branches of the EFF with real members. And now we are going to take them to PPA. They are the last ones who are now going to be taken to the PPA. He thinks when he finishes Limpopo, he's going to rest. We are going to redeploy him back into Joburg to work into Gauteng. Remember, the people of Limpopo, Joburg and Gauteng is one thing. So in Gauteng, to now work with the structures of the EFF, because we want this province. And we want it at all costs. We're going to do everything in our power to take this province and turn it around so that our people in Gauteng start benefiting from the fruits of economic freedom.
How do you respond to commentators who say the growth of the EFF has somewhat stagnated? It's stagnated because it's neglected some sections of the population.
Well, the sections that are neglected are very insignificant. I just said to you now, we exist in the 90% of all the wards in South Africa. So there is no section that is neglected. We are running a well-oiled machinery, and we're highly focused.
Infusion of Indian people, colored people, white people inside the EFF.
I will say the colored community is part of the EFF community in their huge numbers, and Africans. Very small, tiny numbers when it comes to the Indians and the whites. We have not neglected them. They come from a position of privilege, and we do not represent that. We represent the oppressed, and the whites were not oppressed, and the Indians were the least oppressed, and therefore do not see any need to join the struggle that seek to liberate the oppressed, because they are not oppressed. So they are not really our target market. If they come and want to join a just cause of liberating those who are not liberated, even when they are liberated, they are more than welcome into the EFF. The EFF is an anti-racist organization and welcomes everybody who subscribes to a leftist perspective and seeks to expropriate land without compensation and deliver economic freedom into the hands of ordinary people of South Africa.
The reason I'm asking you these questions has to do with your recent attendance in Lesotho of the inauguration of the Prime Minister there, Sam Matekane. His party was only formed in March, and the groundswell of support has now propelled him to be in office. Yes, he didn't get a majority in Parliament, but he was just shy of 5 votes. I'm saying to you that South Africans are yearning for something new in this country. If the ANC itself, which has been in government for the longest time, is itself admitting that it is in crisis, we ordinary South Africans can only be desperate to be taken out of that quagmire. Why is the EFF not a credible alternative?
The EFF, it is a credible alternative. I got more votes than Sam Matekane, so you're comparing apples with oranges. I've got more votes than him. So if I was in Lesotho, I'll be a prime minister plus a president at the same time. So, because I've got more votes. So, the population of South Africa in comparison to the population of Lesotho, it's unfair. So, the EFF seeks to introduce a radical perspective. And the only way to do that is to do it ground up. You ought to conscientize society. And conscientizing society is not a 21st birthday party. It is a process that takes forever. Because you are going to introduce things that people are not used to. So don't do a rush arrangement. Educate people politically. And that's what we're doing. When we said we're recruiting 1 million members this year, and then next year we are politicizing them, in 2024 they become the best of the best ground forces of the EFF, well equipped with tools of analysis. So we are building something qualitative, and that will translate into a quality government that will be supported by our people. You don't want to take government today, expropriate the land, the same people who voted for you turn against you because they didn't understand the policy you advocated.
How do you respond to a skeptic who says a party that is going to take South Africa out of where it is right now to the next level is yet to be born? Because that's someone who clearly does not see an option in what is on offer right now.
If people decide to be blind, it's not our problem. Everybody can see that EFF is the government in waiting in South Africa. Instead of comparing us with the Prime Minister of Lesotho, Sam, compare us with the ANC. How many years did it take them to get into power? And no one has ever been impatient with them because everybody understood that the ideas that the ANC represented at the time will take forever for people to get in their numbers into the revolution and fight for democracy.
How many years, sorry to cut in, how many years did it take Hakainde Hichilema, who's now president in Zambia, to be president there?
So I'm telling you, it took him forever. He was actually living in prison. I had to go fight for his release from prison because he destabilized the convoy of the president. He tried many times. H&H tried many times. And he failed. The one in Malawi has been trying as well. And he failed. In Zimbabwe, look at the Zimbabwean situation. Are you going to say to me, the party that is going to liberate Zimbabweans is still to be born? It is the new ideas that people take time to buy into.
So, upon listening to Julius Malema in this TV interview, the things I noticed, two major things, you know. He's really against racism. He's not against white people. I keep on saying this, and I will say again, Malema ain't against white people. He's against racism in itself, you see. Whether it's a black person causing racism to a white person, or the other way around, which is the common way in South Africa. About where he was talking about violence, beget violence. I think personally that's not the right way to go. Violence should not be fought with violence. Violence will only bring more violence, and I don't think that is what Malema meant by saying we will fight violence with violence. If they fight, we fight back. What I think he meant was if people act racially against them, they'll take them to court. So that is what I think he meant by he will act, or rather he will fight back. And about gender, Malema is really working towards bridging the gap between the male and female. Personally, to me, the male individuals have higher abilities because a lot of things happening out here are done by men. The house I'm living in was built by men. Everything around the world, 90%, or rather, let me put it 80% of the things going on around the world are done by men. So if men were to disappear in this world, it will be a catastrophic disaster for the entire universe. But bringing the women into action, bringing the women into parliament is a nice thing, because women are also being oppressed. Some of us Africans oppress women. Women are not free here in Africa as the same way they are free in the United States or in the Western world. Here in Africa, you hear many cases of women oppression, but you never hear of those cases commonly as the ones we have here in Africa. So whoever wins this next coming election, all we want is the interest of Africans in the best hands. As a famous politician here in Kenya always say, in whose hands will you be safe? Or rather, in whose hands will we be safe? Will we be safe in the hands of EFF? We will be safe in the hands of the ANC? Or will we be safe in the hands of these other political parties? Malema has promised a lot to be done to the black people of South Africa, and we are really hoping that he does the same things. The roads are built by men. Almost everything is built by men, but that does not negate the importance of women. This does not negate the importance of women in power. Women also need to be in power, because these women are the ones who are giving birth to men, you know. So they need equal rights. Here in Africa, women might be really oppressed. Yes, women might be really oppressed. Women are not free here in Africa the same way they are free in the West. The one in the West, I think it's more of catastrophic, because it is off limits. There are those limits which are set by the Bible. I'm a follower of the Bible. There are those limits set by the Bible, which I believe people should work upon, you know. This time the South Africans do it right. They don't suffer. South Africa has a lot of issues, infrastructure issues. We have issues with the power. We have issues with the crime. We have issues with this and that. These are things that Julius Malema is promising to bring to an end. I just hope the South Africans make the right decisions. They know what's right for them, and let them make the right decisions, because whatever you do in South Africa will hugely infect other African countries. As I told you before, South Africa is our big brother and South Africa is our big sister. Everything that happens in South Africa will affect the eastern side of Africa, the western side of Africa, and the northern side of Africa, because you guys are the California of the United States of Africa. That's what you should know. And with leaders such as Malema, leaders who are not afraid, leaders who are able to stand up and call a thing for what it is, call a spade a spade. We need leaders who can confront the problems that black people are really facing. And so far, the people and the person who I have seen doing this, maybe I have seen them, maybe I have not seen all of them. The ones I have seen is Julius Malema. He's able to stand up and talk for the rights of Africans. The good thing and the interesting thing is that some other South Africans are saying that, oh, Julius Malema it's this and that. Stop defending, stop oppressing the white people, stop talking about land, this and that. Land is a basic human right, and for anything to be done constructively in the society, land is a major ingredient. Land is essential. I can't construct a school on air. I need the land to do that. I can't walk on air. I need land to do that. So in South Africa, we have those huge gaps between the poor and the rich. If you see Cape Town, there's the beautiful side of Cape Town, then there's a wall, and there's a very poor side on this other side of Cape Town. When I look at such videos, I'm reminded, indeed, this has to be brought to an end. The gap has to be brought to an end. The gap is so wide between the rich and the poor. And we've had presidents from the ANC, and they've really done nothing about bridging this gap. They've really done nothing, because the gaps are still there. The gaps are still there. Nelson Mandela, at least he brought peace to South Africa. He brought South Africa, he brought the apartheid, not really completely to an end, but he brought it to an end in a way that it was not now being done publicly as a constitutional law. No. Right now it's not in the constitution, but the constitution of South Africa really favors, really favors the white people. A constitution should not favor one race. A constitution should favor the individuals of the particular country. That is what a constitution should look like. And constitution favoring all the individuals does not mean it is oppressing one side or favoring one side. It's just striking a balance. The black person should have equal rights as the white person. If a white person is doing wrong in South Africa, they might go unarrested. But if a black person does a wrong in South Africa, even a day cannot end and the black person will be arrested. What's that? And it's an African land. You get it. It does not really make sense what's happening here. And that's why Julius Malema is really important. He's really important. Eat the fruit, throw the seeds. This person is really important. He will elevate Africa. I'm surprised by this. Other South Africans do not want even the people from Zimbabwe to get into South Africa and help themselves there because of this border thing. Julius Malema is standing against the border policy. He is advocating for a borderless Africa. He is advocating that if he moves here and he goes to Nigeria, why would he stay there and refuse to come back? Which is something that many African governments are trying to use as an excuse to not to allow borderless Africa. The Schengen region of the European Union, those countries, you can have lunch in Germany, breakfast in Spain, dinner in another country, without nobody asking you. But that one you can't do in Africa. Julius Malema is advocating for this. Julius Malema has really promised the black people a lot. It's time we open our eyes to the real deal. South Africans, you know the real deal. We can't decide for you. Decide for yourselves. That's the end of this video. So I'll see you in the next one. And kindly do support the channel. If you find value in what we do, do support the channel. It really helps a lot.